I'm sitting here today with Rogelio Singson, the Secretary of the Department of Public Works and Highways for the Philippines. Newly appointed, he's been 1 month in office and he's already made a lot of very major announcements in terms of creating more transparency in the process and introducing efficiencies. Thank you, Secretary Singson, for speaking to us today. Yeah. I'd like to get right away into some of your recent statements, basically talking about the public-private partnership and opening up your toll roads to greater investment. You'd like to get, of course, the banks more involved. Can you tell me what you've got in mind here?
Well, the infrastructure cabinet secretaries, that means part of the Public Works, Transportation, the National Economic Development Authority and the Department of Finance have gotten together, including the Tourism Department, have gotten together, and we've really advocated that public-private partnership will be a major direction and strategy for President Aquino's administration. We just, as I mentioned, President Aquino took over only July 1st. So that's going to be a major thrust to bring in more investments, to be able to bring in more needed infrastructure in the country. On my part, I've identified key toll roads that have to be undertaken, and they're going to be made available to private sector investments. A full feasibility study has been done on these toll road projects. Aside from that, most of the past projects, for example, in road construction, did not include a component on maintenance. So now we're pushing, aside from the construction component of roads and bridges, we're also incorporating the maintenance component. So we're pushing as much as we can to the private sector.
Where do banks play a role in this, and what types of banks are you hoping to get involved? Development banks, foreign banks, Philippine banks?
Both foreign and local, as well as multilaterals. We've been in very deep discussions with multilaterals like ADB, World Bank, and the Australian Aid, so that they can put together a grant component as well as a loan component. We've gone as far as talking with the Spanish aid, as well as even Middle Eastern banks have shown interest.
Okay. How is this going to be different from the way it was done in the past?
Well, basically we're transforming the way business in the public sector. We're focusing very strongly on transparency, which means there will be no mysterious deals. We will be allowing competition in terms of these private-public partnership projects.
Okay. In terms of, I guess, day-to-day business, and especially, I guess, taking cash out of the system, allowing e-payments, allowing correctly labeled checks to be part of the process. Is that something that you're going to look at later, or?
At this time, it requires some legal and legislation, because most of our procurement processes are legislated. So we're also trying to address that. We're trying to simplify, innovate the processes so that business will be a lot easier in terms of, as you said, collecting payments, getting your bills, as well as using e-procurement. In the world, we only know of one country who's into e-procurement for construction services. There's some difficulty implementing e-procurement for construction services.
Okay. One of the things that we heard today was that you've been able to, I guess, make a 10% saving on your annual budget. $400 million out of your $4 billion annual budget has been saved, I guess, through some analysis,
yes,
through search for greater efficiencies. Can you describe how you did that?
Well, we have a system we call Highway Development Management System that uses road condition, cost of the project, traffic volume, and so on. So very objective criteria. So you run all of the requests for funding for roads and bridges, and you run this through the system. And it measures based on net present value which priorities should be undertaken. So anything that does not appear there in your priorities should not even be funded. And we found out that as much as 17 billion, or translates to almost about 400 million, you did not have to fund because they were just a waste of money. So just pure analytics. I'm familiar with data analytics because in my previous job, I was able to save 1 billion out of 6.5 billion annual budget just using simple prioritization.
Okay, so this is sort of an innovation that you've introduced now to.
That's correct.
That's okay. What had been used previously in that sense?
Well, there's a lot of political decisions in the what projects have to be funded. So therefore, even if you had this all along, if somebody feels that my project goes ahead of what is in the prioritization, then what has to be done is moved down until you have limited resources. Then you're not able to fund what are your priorities.
What other sort of innovations are you hoping to introduce to the department?
It's in the transformation of the culture. For the first time, we're engaging the customers, we're engaging the general public. We want the general public to get involved in governance, in monitoring and feedback of the projects that are in their locality. In the past, this was practically a mystery to everyone. They just know that there's a huge budget, but they don't know where those funds are, what projects are being funded. Today, I receive a lot of information coming from the general public saying this fund was supposed to be coming to our locality. We never saw a shadow of that fund. So we're publishing all of this. In the next 2 weeks, we will publish what has been spent in the first 6 months. And people will know exactly how this taxpayers' money has been spent.
So this is all really about transparency?
That's correct. Really engaging the general public. The only way this transparency program can succeed is the general public get involved.
What are your challenges in the sense of pooling that information, that data, just to get it, to be able to analyze it? Of course, you've got a lot of silos, I would imagine. How do you break those down?
No, surprisingly, they're there. Surprisingly, they have been there. And that's why on my first month, I was able to identify what were essential and which were not essential. Unfortunately, they have not been utilized properly. We even have a traffic assessment and reporting system where you identify where most of the accidents occur so that you're able to augment safety standards into those streets. But if you don't use them, then the system is useless.
So the information has always been there?
That's correct. Well, of recent years, but not. We are lucky that when I got there, the system was in place.
Another thing that you want to implement is, I guess, a reshuffling of your internal staff. There's been some talk about maybe 1/3 of some positions would not be renewed, or the individuals will be relieved. How are you managing that?
Well, very much part of the program is really transforming the organization. So necessarily, I have to identify who are professionals, who are not. I believe that out of the 20,000 employees of the department, there are many professionals who want to develop a career in the Department of Public Works and Highways. And so I just have to be firm about it so that those who don't deserve to be there have to be given the pink cards.
Okay, in terms of further cost savings, you've spoken about, I guess, identifying misallocated funds. In terms of creating greater efficiencies in the way that your department is run, what are some of the other measures that you're trying to implement?
The top-notch contractors in the country have not been participating in the biddings of the department. They say it's useless, there's a lot of pollution happening. So I met with them and I said, okay, give me your shopping list. What do you need so that you can come back and participate in public works biddings and so on? So I'm waiting for that. I met with them last week and they said, yes, we'd like to participate, provided you assure us that there's going to be a level playing field. And I said, give me your shopping list. I implement them as soon as I get them.
And there'll be transparency and openness in that process?
That's correct. In fact, as I said, immediately when I stepped in, I canceled 19 negotiated contracts, huge contracts, which were to me really just out and out negotiated contracts that where there was no transparency involved in the whole process.
I guess, I think you have 5 years in your mandate.
6 years.
6 years. What do you hope to achieve by the end of that in that sense?
Well, my mandate is to make sure that our national roads meet international standards in terms of quality and safety. So I have a program that within the 6 years, we shouldn't be lagging behind in percentage of paved roads compared to our ASEAN neighbors. So I have a program that will focus on upgrading national roads and bridges to international standards in terms of quality and safety.
Do you have a role model in the sense that you're following another country that's been in a similar situation as yours that you maybe sort of look to for some lessons?
You know, my 3 years in the utility business is giving me a lot of handle in terms of moving to the public works. 3 years from a very bad court rehabilitated entity, and in 3 years we were able to turn it around and make it profitable. It is also in highly regulated water distribution utility. So I'm using exactly the same strategy in terms of engaging the public. I'm using exactly the same strategy in terms of transforming the organization, in terms of culture and values. I'm using a lot of data analytics as well. So I'm saying it looks like that was a very good training ground for me. It's now, except that I'm now trying to address the whole country rather than the small portion of Metro Manila.